Welcome to the Sonic Collective. On this special episode, we'll get to know a very talented musician currently living in Western Canada. From early days in the Calgary bar scene, building his name as a solo artist, to playing with two supporting players, singer-songwriter WiL has built a loyal following many musicians would love to have. In this fickle business, what's kept him going for so many years? What does he still love about music? And what's next? From Bangkok, Thailand, I'm Scott Coates, and with me for this interview is...
Darren Scott from Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Hey, man, we're really excited, I know, to do this. You know, we've talked to Alan Cross, we've talked to Sam Roberts, and doing these kind of focused musician episodes is kind of extra fun for us because, you know, self-admittedly, it's kind of a bit of fan work. I think we like the people we've talked to. What is your earliest memory of WiL?
Yeah, I know. And we've been talking a little bit lately about the kind of the working musician. And my earliest memories are, Scott, both you and I were in the bar scene in the 90s in Calgary.
Yep.
And that is where WiL kind of cut his teeth playing. And I remember him at a few different locations. For me, one was the Barley Mill in Calgary. And there was also Kaylee's pub where he played quite a bit, and the Vicious Circle. So he was in, those were popular locations in the 90s here in Calgary. And he was just a fun one-man show with a lot of covers and some of his own originals. And it was just great. That was my first memories. What about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I was a bartender and DJ at a place called the Rattlesnake Saloon, where I believe the Keg on McLeod Trail is now. I think WiL worked in the restaurant and bar industry at that time, and he came in as a one-man, show. He'd set up, and he would just, I remember, absolutely play the shit out of it. He would take a room full of people that weren't there to see him, didn't know who he was, to probably within 30 minutes, like standing up and cheering. And even now, I don't know if I have seen a performer that had quite the amount of energy and crowd engagement that WiL had. Like, he would break strings, which he's famous for. He'd have drinks, and man, he just create a serious following and a love. I mean, I still really like the guy. I own all his albums. So I'm really delighted to catch up with him. The last time I saw him play was about 9 years ago at a private wedding function. And I'm really keen to hear what he has to say. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, I saw him, but I think 3 years ago at the Ironwood here in Calgary, and hopefully that can reopen soon. But yeah, you know what? Let's get to the man himself. Why don't you do an introduction, and let's get WiL to join us now.
Originally from Quebec, Canada, WiL Mimnaugh, or WiL as he's known on stage, has been wowing fans for more than 20 years. His unique, very full acoustic sound combined with wild live performances and a propensity for breaking strings has made him a musical legend, especially in Western Canada. He joins us online from his home just north of Qualicum Beach on Vancouver Island to share the journey that is his musical life. Thanks for joining us, WiL.
Hello, and thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start right at the beginning. And I'm curious, tell us where you're originally from and what was it like growing up as a young kid?
Wow, there's so much to answer in that question. But I won't be long-winded with it. Born in Quebec, Elmer, Quebec was where I was raised, born in Sherbrooke. Moved out into Calgary, Alberta around 1980. Not a cliche story maybe, but a story based on my father looking for a better life for his family, basically. And he was a heavy-duty mechanic. We were just a wonderful family of, at the time, 2 siblings and my mother and father. Raised on music, raised on Friday night parties with our family. Yeah, just overall, it was one of those things that you don't realize what you cut your teeth on or with until you get older in life. And you reflect back on where you came from, if that makes any sense, especially when you lose things along the way. You lose a lot of inhibitions or ideas of inhibitions that you had, and especially people that you lose. So it's very reflective when you get older. And I'm 50 now, so it's really easy for me to go back to your question about where I'm from, how I grew up, and and ultimately Calgary, Alberta, and now on Vancouver Island, way fast forward. Long-winded answer to your question, but I hope it's pretty accurate.
Perfect.
Yeah, and WiL, just to fast forward, I guess, from your youth, what music were you listening to in your teenage years?
Teenage years, wow. That was a hell of a time, because I know everyone has a very proud flag to fly when you're young. We do that, especially as we get older. We want to brag more about how much we were involved with the Smiths or the Dead Kennedys or whatever flag we flew. And I got to say, when I was a teen, preteen to teenager, I was so confused that I was inundated and accepting of everything. And I hung out with all of the headbangers, skaters, all the punks and jocks, and it was a real Ferris Bueller story. And so my teenage years were inundated with the likes of SNFU or Benny Goodman or Iron Maiden or Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed, even Nina Simone, or obviously Michael Jackson and Van Halen. It was a really unbelievable time personally, because there wasn't anything that I was so invested in that defined who I was, as much as I floated around with so many cliques and genres of types of individuals that I became a sponge, but I didn't know then that I was becoming a sponge. I was just sort of lost.
Now, you just mentioned a really wide swath of artists. Do you feel like all those have influenced you, or are there certain bands and artists that have kind of formed your musical sound and who you are as an artist?
I would have to attribute it to literally all of them, or all of it. There was a time when I guess I'd first listened to Nevermind the Bollocks' Here's the Sex Pistols record, and having that as an album, only wondering how that's possible. And much like many people who had ever heard that and wondered, how do you play a bass? How do you play a guitar? How do you sing? So I think being so enamored by all of that, any genre again, any style or piece of music, it just ends up ingrained into who you are at some point. Especially with my parents being so supportive of all of it. My mother would play Boney M at the top of the the ability of that hi-fi system during Christmas with the windows open while we're cleaning the house, listening to that. Back to that Friday night kitchen parties that my parents had when I was growing up. Father played guitar and sang. My mother sang with him, and they sang the Bee Gees, and then of course Simon and Garfunkel, and great artists of their time. But the most amazing thing about my parents is I could play them something out of left field, and they would sit and listen to it front to back with me and understand why I enjoyed it, or ask me why I enjoyed it, versus just judging it. So again, a long-winded answer, but the influences of all of those genres of music that I'd cut my teeth on and with, I would only hope they're part of everything that I do.
That's awesome. I'm from the East Coast, so I like the kitchen party reference.
Yeah, no, there you go. No, for sure. It's what a wonderful, that alone as a tradition in music. Like, oh my God, having done shows back east, having done Stanfest, like been on those stages with those people, and having definitely toured with or opened with bands from that world. Just, it's a no-brainer,
Yeah, it's fun. So, I mean, we're on, like, now you're talking about live music. So what are your earliest memories of concerts that really impacted you and bands that you saw live?
That's a great question, because it's a tough one to answer for any artist who potentially hadn't known what they were watching, if that makes any sense to you. Mm-hmm. It's kind of one of those things, like if my dad took me to Zeppelin when I was 11, I wouldn't have known any better, But as far as my purest answer, I'm going to go straight to Iron Maiden, Saddle Dome.
Nice.
It would have been, I believe, the Somewhere in Time tour. There was a couple of folks that I worked in a mall with when I was working at the music store. There was a gal, Michelle, that worked at the lottery booth, and her husband at the time, they were just older than I was, to just show me a little bit more of the way about music. Michelle's husband was a thrash metal speed demon guitar player motherfucker. And it was amazing to me, because I was just playing acoustic guitars, And then they took me under their wing and brought me to the Saddle Dome to watch Iron Maiden. I'm just coming up with that now as a reference or a memory, and I'm so appreciative of it.
That's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. They were just in Calgary here 2 years ago, and I saw them for the first time, and it still blew my mind. And I mean,
yeah.
But they purposely, like, all the shots were backed off so you couldn't see them close ups how old they were. But they were running around the stage great. They still rock. Iron Maiden still puts on a great show.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing to hear. And how, I mean, how could they not? Because you've often, obviously they're a band that they wouldn't do what they did if they couldn't do what they do. if that makes any sense, because that's how they came up. They didn't come up based on hype and a bunch of bullshit or a radio hit single. They were not on radio. They had not seen radio play other than college radio. They played the shit out of the world. They played shows. They fundamentally
hundreds and hundreds, yes.
Thousands, absolutely. They just played. It's like shut the fuck up and play. That was applicable to that band. They were not invested in how many T-shirts they sold and who thought they were cool. They were just into playing, and that's really admirable. And I really dig that about them.
Well, that kind of dovetails into the next thing I was curious about, Will. Like, it sounds like you grew up in a musical family. Your dad's playing. There's Boney M at Christmas. I'm guessing you're playing growing up as a teenager. What got you to the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to play in public for someone now? Like, I'm ready to do a public gig. How did you get to that point?
I guess that would be, wow. There was a moment where I was a waiter on Southport Earls.
I remember that.
Okay.
Nice.
Awesome. That was like the last hurrah of some great, amazing people in the restaurant business that went on to own and operate their own places, which was highly influential for me as a person who didn't realize they were extroverted. I always thought I was introverted. And then I got a job at Earl's as a waiter and realized I was an extrovert. I realized that I wasn't so closed in. I wasn't such a basement dweller that sat with Pink Floyd and a classical guitar and tried to play along to it, and that was it. Basically, Jeff Hanna at the time was a manager. He had caught wind of me playing guitar somehow. I don't remember how. And had asked me at a staff meeting to sing a Tragically Hip song. And I think it was like Boots and Hearts.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, that rings a bell for sure. Boots of Hearts at the staff meeting, and I just thought it was the bee's knees as it was. I was just flabbergasted with the response of the people in the staff meeting. I don't know how I came to know the song, to be honest with you, because I was, I guess, just practicing covers. Shortly thereafter, it was just waitering, and then on it goes, and then I'm serving a table of a bunch of guys from a place called Leon's Furniture, and I was I guess I was a waiter that would be really good for your table, but not great at all at having more than one table. So I would be in the weeds quickly. But if I was engaged with you, you had the best experience you could imagine, right? I was met by these gentlemen from Leon's furniture warehouse. I'd been asked if I wouldn't mind working there right from the table. Eric Reinhardt, I believe was his name, and Bram Ashwell. They were gentlemen involved with Leon's. I think Eric Reinhardt was the manager at the time. Long story short, he says, "Gosh, I really dig you. Here's my card. Call me if you want to change your career." And I'm, 18 or whatever, 19 years old. I took him up on it, went to Leon's, started selling televisions, and then fast forward to a church for Reinhardt Errett's, Errett Reinhardt or Reinhardt Errett. Gosh, I hate getting those backwards, but he had asked me if I wanted to sing songs at his church. So I showed up and sang like Crash Test Dummies and with an acoustic guitar. And from that moment on, I ended up at Kaylee's, and that was the big moment of like, here's some fucking people who didn't come here to be polite and pay. I'm not paying you to be here. They don't care who you are and where you're from. They're not going to be nice. They're here to drink. So sing songs. And it was a wonderful, like, wow, moment.
So I was lucky enough to be bartending at the Rattlesnake Saloon on McLeod Trail, which is no longer there. And I believe that was like when you were kind of starting to play bar gigs. So can you just kind of tell us, you mentioned Kaylee's, like, what was it like starting out and building your reputation in the Calgary bar scene in those early days?
Like, there's no easy answer to that. It was, all I can refer to is you fill your vehicle up with gear, you go set up in a bar with all of your shit, and you mix yourself from your stage with a little 8-channel mixer. You turn a volume knob up and you sing into a microphone with a guitar plugged into a DI that meet two speakers that face people who you've never seen or could care less that you're there. That bizarre sort of interaction right there. It's no different than if you just walked into a bar and pulled your pants down and said, "Does anybody want free popcorn?" And you're going to get some people think it's amusing or it's cute, or some people who are offended and why are your pants down? And I don't fucking like popcorn. I'm allergic to popcorn. And it's just, the response could be all over the map, especially nowadays, right? That was a time when you haul your shit into a place, you set up, and people are already there and they're already digging in. They're enjoying their conversations, that's what speakeasies are all about, the pubs, the bars, the social haunts. They're for us to kick back and relax and enjoy each other's company. So if someone's about to set a bunch of shit up in the corner and start yelling into a microphone a song about their feelings while they play through it, especially if it's a song that I'm aware of and they're covering it, you'd better be prepared for the worst experience you could possibly imagine, or one of the greatest ones you'll ever experience, based on the response of those people that you've never met. That's all I can equate it to. It's such a crapshoot.
So now, you've done the bar scene, you've done the cover scene, you're working on your originals, but, I guess when did you first realize you wanted to be a professional musician and make a career out of it?
I guess the short answer to that, because I don't have short answers, but the short answer to that would be having met my good friend Jeff Lytle, and then literally moving in with him, and his brother Bruce at the time being part of Twin Towers, which is now 6 Degrees. 6 Degrees is a commercial studio. Dan McManus, Johnny Aquinte, and at the time Ted Osler and people that were all affiliated in this business I had just become fast and furious friends with through Jeff. Been thrusted into a world of capable, amazing people, engineers, studios. And it's like, fuck, what? Okay, so I'm going to meet my friend Jeff, move in with him, meet his brother, who's a producer and an amazing, accomplished musician, a composer. And it's just like, yeah, let's go hang out at this studio for a while. We'll just hang out with each other, and we'll hang out with my brother and then my brother's friends. And on it went. And it was like this bizarre meant to be thing. You couldn't paint a better sort of picture to have unfold for someone who's interested in singing songs. That's where it all just sort of blossomed, and the Both Hands record was born from that and those relationships, period. Let alone the title track, Both Hands, written by Jeff Lytle, nurtured by myself with him, for sure. He would always say that I took it somewhere further, but he wrote that song. And that's how, that's how that began. And all of a sudden I found myself no longer in a bar singing covers, but I was in another bar at the other end of the country singing original music for music industry people for North by Northeast, trying to get a record deal.
You've just touched on now playing on the East Coast and sort of major labels. What was that period and process like from going from releasing this independent album to all of a sudden getting the attention of a major label?
The best way to surmise or answer is, when you play music, everybody inherently immediately assumes that you want to be rich and famous. Is that fair?
I think people believe that that's the reality of
it.
Yeah.
No, great way to say that. The one thing that I've often found fascinating is no one has ever bothered to ask anybody if they wanted to be. It's just part of what is assumed of you. If you're going to sign up with or for this, then therefore you want to be rich and famous, or you want to be known. You want to be a popular person. And it's hard to not have that come even by default by way of that industry. Totally get it. The interesting part about it is no one ever asks, what is it you wish to gain or have from the experience, or what do you want from this? That's never usually a common question. So when it came time to be involved with a major label, it was really amazing to sit across a desk from Dean Cameron, who was the head of EMI at the time. And he was the first person in my life that had ever asked me to my face, what is it that you're looking to gain or achieve from this? And that was a big holy fuck moment for me personally, is to have the head of EMI sit across after we arm wrestled, of course, which was awesome. We had to arm wrestle. It was great.
For real?
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely 100%. Because I was really into arm wrestling, and he was super into like just like getting into like what you like to do in your life that isn't about music. I'm being serious. Dean Cameron was basically one of the main reasons why I ended up with EMI. And this is the president of the company. So you wouldn't think that would necessarily come from an individual like that, because he must be way too busy to give a shit about you being new. But he's a father figure of a human being, and I don't care what anyone has to say about him or their relationship with him or that company. That guy was amazing. I also knew I wasn't being played by somebody. I wasn't being charmed. I was being cared for by a human being. So yeah, we arm wrestled. We talked about it. It was just when he had presented to me the question, he had asked me, "What is it you want from this?" I was so stunned and frozen in my tracks that I didn't really have a great answer for him at the time, to be honest. But reflecting back now, it's like that transition is like all I wanted to do was play music for people and move people. That was it. I didn't want to be rich and famous and idolized. I wanted to be someone that you could prop up in that bar or on that stage and actually change somebody's day and move somebody, and then look and see someone's face that is altered in a split second by something that you did and how you sang. And it meant something to them. And then you got to leave, and that was it. All the other complicated, convoluted sort of keeping up with the Joneses and being famous and stuff, I couldn't care less. I just wanted to show up out of a magic hole in the bottom of a stage, get propped up, sing songs. That's it.
Amazing. I'm glad you had that kind of experience, because you hear of an awful lot of terrible, label stories. So yeah, you were with the label for a while, and then you left the label. How did you end up shaping that next stage of your career, going to a label and then leaving the label and kind of heading out and as an independent? Is an independent artist the right word?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of how I went into it with that Both Hands record, because we were completely independent at the time when we made that album. And then EMI picked us up with that album. And then we had a wonderful run with them for 5 or 6 years. Made the By December record with them. And after we left them, we ended up with Cordova Bay. I can't say how far after that we ended up with them as a label, but Cordova Bay was wonderful in the sense that they were there they just knew that it wasn't a development deal. It wasn't something where we're going to nurture you into something that you don't feel comfortable with. They knew who we were and we knew who we were. So we just stayed with them for a little while, and they're wonderful because, and in essence, I can't say that we're with them right now anymore, but we could always be with them again. So we've come back to being independent again. That feels really comfortable in a lot of ways, especially nowadays, but there's no hard, fast, and easy answer to what's better, to be brutally honest with you. Granted, being with a major label, you incur a great deal of debt and a lot of money. As soon as money becomes part of the equation, I don't give a shit who you are. When you make it or you don't make, when you make money or don't make money, on either end of the spectrum, it changes who you are fundamentally. That's all there is to it. As far as I know, finance, it drives and delegates decisions and that way of being, and it can't possibly live with art symbiotic. It can't. It just doesn't work that way. Artists are artists, and they'll do anything. A true artist will do anything and give you anything to make you feel something, and then to put a value on that, blah blah blah, on it goes. Is that painting with that one broad stroke of red paint worth $5 million? That's bullshit. It's so subjective, like, and how much is The River by Joni Mitchell worth? How much is it worth? What is it worth? Like, literally, I mean, I don't know, I know that when I build fences as my job here on the island, and we do fencing for agricultural farms and forestry and stuff, and we put massive posts and holes and stretch wire and staple fencing all day long. I know what that's worth an hour. I know what I get paid an hour to do that. But like, what's it actually worth? What's it worth to the the person who now gets a fence, or my friend who owns the business that sold them this fence. Like, it's so bizarre.
Well, kind of a personal interest for me. I see a lot of live music in Calgary, and one thing that I've kind of learned and known of is that Western Canada and the Northwestern United States especially is this kind of own ecosystem for bands and acts, because just the distance to get anywhere else. I know you really kind of carved out a niche in Alberta and BC to start. I guess if you could maybe just go back, and what was it like touring in those early days, and your thoughts on this kind of Western band ecosystem?
The early days things for us wasn't Western Canada, though. Like, to
No,
be honest,
interesting.
no. We drove across this country a few times, ended up in scenarios, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Ontario, the whole gamut. Really amazing experiences that way as far as carving out a living goes. The Western Canada thing is definitely, if you want to say like Alberta, BC, specifically as you were referring to, that geographically is much easier for sure. I don't know that I can actually speak to, I'm fumbling for an answer more than anything, because I love touring Alberta and BC. And if we could only just tour Alberta, BC, and make a great living doing that, that would be fucking awesome. But we've always gone anywhere that we were asked to go, and we had made it happen countless times, no matter what. We were the band, and always have been the band, that would open for anyone, show up anywhere that you asked us to show up, no matter if we had to fly there or drive. And that's what we did. I guess our path has really been carved out more so on the West Coast for sure. Like, if that helps your question.
Nice. No, that's good. That's good. Yeah. It's interesting. Your experience, you just went right across Canada right away. That's fantastic. Hardworking musician.
Yeah. That's how it goes in this country for sure. That cliche space between venues, right? You definitely do the Lydia's till 2:30 in the morning, and then get up at 6 a.m. to make Winnipeg for a 3:00 load in. That's not uncommon. But that's also part of paying the dues, which is, I think, also what makes a lot of Canadian musicians pretty fucking awesome and resilient. If you can figure out how to not let alcohol or drugs or the unhealthy part of living consume too much of you when you get older with that. It's great when you're 21, young, dumb, full of cum. Ceiling is you have no ceiling. You're infinitely powerful. Your inhibitions, the prospects, nothing's impossible. That's an amazing time to be a musician, let alone talented musician at 21 years of age, That's a really wonderful bottled lightning thing that is really respectable and cool. And I hope to see more of that in our new world. I hope that doesn't go away.
You just mentioned the word resilience, Will, and you earlier in this chat mentioned that you're 50. I mean, I really marvel at the will of anybody who can do something they're passionate about for a long time and make a living of it. And I've seen pictures of you in the past felling trees, working with a chainsaw. You just mentioned you build fences, yet you're still a professional musician. Like, what is that battle and grind to maintain a living and to keep doing this as a musician in the day and age of streaming? It seems like it just gets harder and harder. Like, what keeps you in the game, and what's it like?
I would have to answer that by saying that I don't know that I'm in a game, if I had to be brutally honest with you and your question. The minute I've ever recognized that it was a game was when I detached and I was disappointed. And as soon as I'm naive enough to realize it isn't one, I put everything into it. And I continue and forge forward, and I'll do whatever it takes to ensure that I myself and my wife, Caroline, and my life, so to speak, that means anything to me or anyone I'm with, there's a positive consequence from decisions made. And it isn't based on, again, rich and famous, so to speak. It's more of the life pursuit part of decisions. It's more about saying yes to something that you would otherwise say no to. I'm not saying be a yes man and just go about it with, do everything possible because you could die. It's more of the experiences that I had lived when I was young are what brought me to write music and stories that I was able to play and convey to people and move them. So why should I stop doing that? How I got to here. I guess that's probably a better way to answer it.
Yeah, great.
So I'm a big fan of just if you ask me to be part of a journey of yours and it's something that's really fucking crazy sounding, I won't take you up on it because it's really fucking crazy sounding. I'll take you up on it because your intentions seem pretty genuine and you've asked me to come along, and I'll go at it with you. So I guess it's about the person who's delivering the request. So I'll dig a ditch or absolutely hopefully fly an F-18 or I don't know. You know, I really don't.
Hand.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like it really is for me personally. It's not a bucket list thing either. It's just following a path of people that you appreciate, and wherever it takes you, that's where you go with it.
That's awesome. Will, you know, one thing I just wanted to touch on, and literally your domain is ibreakstrings.com. I've seen you live a few times. I've heard a few of your stories about it, but, and literally on your merch, it says beating the shit out of his guitar since 1993. And I love that slogan. And I also even remember there was a story you said about making crafts out of the strings. I think your wife did that, but I guess, why is your style? Why do you break so many strings? And does that actually give you some of your sound too? I'd like to know a little bit of the story around that.
Yeah, that's a great question. The broken strings thing. The best way to explain that is if you ever set up in that bar that I was referring to earlier, and you didn't feel like anyone was listening, what would you do? What would
a little louder?
Yeah. What does anybody do when they're at a microphone at a public speaking affair or a funeral or in a church or anything on a microphone? A microphone's a great example of uncomfortable, right? As soon as someone gets up on a microphone, for instance, to say something, they have to weigh in on or lean in or out of what we're doing right now with each other, right? Like, are you too loud? Am I too loud? If I'm back here, hey, I'd like to talk about the death of my dad. And then it's like, you'll have to speak louder. I didn't hear that. And it's like, oh, that's fucking horrible. So like basically it's an audible thing. And then when you're in a bar and even setting up and you're behind your speakers, you don't know that you're reaching people, especially if you're not getting a reaction. So you could be not getting a reaction because you're too fucking loud, or you're not getting a reaction because no one can hear you. And both reactions to both of those tend to be the same thing, believe it or not. It's pretty bizarre. And so I think from way back when of setting up and not sure how to mix my own board, I just kept digging in 5 nights a week, up and down, and I would play and I would sing louder and I'd sing louder. And the more I'd get into it and the more intense that I'd play, I'd start to realize people are really into this. And it's like, oh my God, they're really holy crap. They're paying attention now. With that also comes the physicality of what you're doing. And like, you could watch somebody beating the shit out of an acoustic guitar and singing their ball sack off and not even hear what they're doing, and you'll be entertained. Mm-hmm. Like that just goes with that, right? Especially if they're drinking and they're actually kind of becoming crazy and you're drinking. And then now add the fact that you can hear them and they're also singing a song that you know. Not only a song that you know, but a song that just came out on the radio, because those are the covers that I used to do all the time from Mix 1060. I don't know if you remember that, Scott.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or both of you, yeah. And Mix 1060 was an alternative AM frequency station that played the newest, greatest stuff for us. So I would set Mix 1060 on a tape deck at home and record those songs and then come home and learn them and go to the bar and sing them. So the songs that were on the radio, I was covering right away that night in the bar, if that makes any sense, versus just covering a song that's 10 years old or whatever. And that was pretty remarkable. So you now end up becoming this person who's beating the shit out of their guitar, physically screaming and playing powerfully songs that people may have just heard. All that started to become this thing where I didn't know how to play guitar any differently or sing any differently. So I learned how to sing loud and play loud. And the irony of it all is that the harder you hit a guitar, the quieter it becomes, which is really funny because it loses its resonance like a snare drum. Like a snare drum has a sweet spot when you hit it and you let it resonate properly. If you smash a snare drum, it loses that. And that's no different than an acoustic guitar, but I didn't give a shit. And I still don't to some degree. And I was never a finesse person, but it took a lot of years down the road for me to learn how to be dynamic. And that's what I value more than anything now. I had to learn how to be quiet later in life versus how some people start out way too quiet and way too kind and endearingly introspective and polite how they play. And it's so quiet and so lovely and so sweet. And then people are like, I can't fucking hear you. So I started out on the other end of the spectrum and probably annoyed a lot of people.
That's fantastic.
Wow. So you've been beating the shit out of that guitar since 1993, as Darren mentioned, you have on your t-shirts. And we've kind of touched on your first release, Both Hands. And that's, I believe, right around the 20th anniversary. You're planning some sort of re-release, are you not, or celebration of that?
Definitely, yeah. Thanks to Caroline more than anything. She has done all the due diligence and all the remarkable work at ensuring that we can actually re-release this to begin with, because we now own it again outright from our previous label that we were with on it, and don't know how all that works because Caroline takes care of all of that for us. Officially, it's going to be re-released digitally and owned by us for the first time again since we made it, and that's coming this Friday, which is a huge thing. And the one thing I have to say is that I'm not just saying this because I've been with Caroline for over 30 years. I'm saying this like if we weren't even together anymore and she still tirelessly continues to do what it is she does for us, none of this would be a thing if it was left up to me at all. I just don't have the capability, the administrative prowess or whatever to do this and accomplish this stuff. Caroline's the one that makes this happen. And I mean that. Visit the website, ibreakstrings.com. That's entirely her. It's her baby. It's her world. She's the tireless merch gal at every show and has been since I've met her. It's pretty cool. And I didn't mean for this to go this way, but back to why Both Hands is going to be re-released is because she made this happen quite literally with obviously the original recording outfit, 6 Degrees from Calgary, Dan McManus and the whole team that did this from the get-go. So it's pretty amazing making your debut record and touring the shit out of it and being picked up by a label and them owning half of it for a lot of your life and then getting to a place where you get to own it all back again. It's not the Taylor Swift story by any stretch, but it's pretty cool on a Small Potatoes platform.
What's next on the horizon for you, Will?
It's another album, much like any artist. I thought I finished a record about 2 years ago at in my home studio, and then listened to it again a year later and realized that it's not a record. But so the long and short of it is all the albums we've done over the years with all the different ways we've done records with the different people in different studios and different budgets and you name it, we've tried it and done it, and it's been an amazing journey that way. Ended up making a record called Songs that I did out of my house here. It's got really lovely intention. It means something for sure, but it's just not there because my studio is really basic. I keep forging and fighting for music out of here. The more I try to learn, the more I do. And recently, a good friend of mine, Ryan Dahl, who I've known for years, he actually even played with us for a while. He's a remarkable Canadian musician, producer, guitar player, a general songsman, and has 1 million miles of touring under his belt, if not 10 times more than that. We hooked up again recently, and he's listening to the stuff that I made here, and he's the missing link in making it all better, and that's where we're going with this new album. We'll be working together to either mix what I've done or re-record anything that needs to be done because we both believe that there's some amazing material in there. So that's the next chapter. I'll continue to build fences and ride motorcycles and do all the things that I do here on the island. But the one thing that I'll never, ever fucking stop doing is playing live. Even if there's restrictions out the yin-yang that say you can't, I respectfully and will always respectfully abide by whatever rules and regulations are put forth. But the one thing I'll never not do is pick up a guitar and sing a song for a person. And I don't care if it's 2 people or 10,000 people, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. That's what I was built to do and put on the earth to do, I think.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I can't wait to hear the new album. As we touched on, the digital re-release of Both Hands is coming out Friday, January 22nd, 2021. Make sure you get it if you don't have it, and visit ibreakstrings.com. The site's really great, has links to your entire catalog, lots of live videos and other things. Thanks so much for making the time to share your story with us, Will. Really awesome.
Thank you for having me on this and letting me talk this much.
Well, wow, we cannot thank Will Mimnaugh enough, known as Will. That was such a great interview, Scott. Will really offered up a lot of information and opened up to us. And it's really great to talk to such a hardworking musician. I guess, now Will has dropped off the line here, but Scott, I guess, summarize what you kind of thought of that interview and Will himself.
Well, number one, kind of like the Sam Roberts interview, I really loved just how personal Will was. He gave us way more than we asked for or he needed to, and I really learned a lot about the guy. That was great. The thing that's always amazed me about him is it must be hard as hell to make a living, to actually pay the bills, to make a living in this business. I think it just seems like it gets harder and harder, but he seems to do it. He seems to, in non-pandemic times, have lots of gigs. I see him playing private gigs, and he clearly still absolutely loves what he does, right? Like, it seems like he loves it as much as he probably did in those early bar days.
Yeah, I agree. And right at the end there, he was basically like, you try to pry this guitar from my cold, dead hands. He didn't say that, but pretty much he was like, he just finished by saying like, I will always play for one person or 10,000. So that really moved me. I think, you really realize when people find their passion and pursue it and don't let anything get in between it, it's quite noble. And Will definitely exuded that feeling.
Yeah, and he seems to do things he loves. And I liked how he talked, I can't remember the word he used, but in the intention, if people ask him to do things and the intention's good, like building fences, right? I don't know if he really needs the money to build fences, but it seems that he likes the person who owns the company, and that guy has pride, and Will likes to do some manual labor, so he enjoys building fences. He also very much enjoys making music. So I love the fact that this guy has passions and he follows them, and his life is all about following his passion. And if more of us could do that in our lives, boy, the world would be a happier place.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just, an excellent man, human being, and just obviously dedicated to his craft. And, it just seemed like a gentle, good soul that's out there to do good. So yeah, that was a great interview. Really happy to catch up with Will, that's, known quite well across Canada. And, if you don't know him and you've listened to this interview, definitely go, listen to his stuff. And if you ever get the chance to see him live, and I think that's where he really thrives. And I know you and I have seen him live several times. That is the key. He just has the crowd in the palm of his hands. I've seen big acts in the Saddle Dome or other big venues with 10, 20,000 people, and the bands might not have stage presence or not. They're like, here's our next song, and they just bang it out. But Will is not that. So I think try to see him live. If not, at least support him, buy his merch, download the albums, pay for them, support a great Canadian artist like Will.
Yeah, enjoyed the episode a ton. Be sure to go to thesoniccollective.com. Check out the show notes. We have links to all things Will. You can also go to ibreakstrings.com. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. We'll be back in not too long with another specialty episode with some sort of musician. Also remember, every month, the root of what we do is picking an album, listening to it, and sharing our thoughts. So thanks so much. Darren, why don't you take us out?
Yeah, thanks again, Scott. Thanks again, Will Mimnaugh, known as Will. Couldn't have enjoyed this episode more. For the Sonic Collective of Scott Coates, all the way in Bangkok, Thailand. Will was from Qualicum, BC, and I'm here in Calgary, Alberta, but we're signing out. Thanks, and join us next time at thesoniccollective.com.